Enzo, and today I want to share with you a template that you can use to prepare for a difficult conversation. And I want to invite you, if you are so inclined, to share with a friend and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So first, let's think about what is a difficult conversation. And in my mind, it's a conversation where two people have a strong difference of opinion. It's also a conversation that could become emotional. And what I want to share with you today is a template for you to plan or think through your conversation. I do encourage you writing things down other than just thinking about it, but it'll help you if you go in with a plan to remain calm in the process and accomplish a lot more than if you just, so to speak, wing it or do it off the cuff. Remember, your goal in a difficult conversation is not to win that person over to your side or convince them that you are right. The goal of a difficult conversation is simply to see if you can have a new and better future together. So that's where we're headed in this short video today. So think about this word because, and the template that I have created is based on that word because. Not all relationships are created equal. And your immediate family, for example, they're probably nines or tens in terms of a scale of 1 to 10 important relationships. People at work, maybe your boss, your coworkers, maybe your customers, the people you serve, those probably rank right up there too, maybe 7, 8, or 9. Now, other people you interact with during the day probably don't weight as high. So think about why this relationship is important to you. And then the other why is, why do I want to have the discussion? Is it something that has been kind of simmering for a long time? Or is it something that really sticks in me and just gets me upset and frustrated and I'm tired of that? Or is it something I feel like we have to resolve this issue before we can move forward at work or in our discussions or even on the project? So those are all reasons why this is important and important to think about. So if we think of the word because, the first B is behavior. And behavior is about what you can see and what you can hear. So I recommend you start your conversation with a statement that describes the behavior. Now, I want to talk to you today because I've noticed, and then you talk about what you've noticed. The story I like to tell at this point is to get you thinking about interactions that are, well, maybe frequent and typical, and that might be with a parent and a teenager. So here's the pretend story I want you to think about. Imagine you are a teen and you borrowed the family vehicle. Now I know in this day and age, almost every teenager has a mobile device where they can call home. But we're going to pretend that mobile device is dead, right? The battery's dead. You don't have a way to charge it. There's no way to call. So we roll in the driveway with the family vehicle an hour after curfew. What's most likely the first thing that's going to be said? Well, parents going to have a question, right? Where the heck have you been? What are you doing? Do you know what time it is? Do you know how late you are? And when we start the conversation with a question, we automatically set up some defenses. Now, I know in this story as a teenager, oh, you're thinking, yeah, sure, what does this have to do with me and an employee? Well, think about it. I want to start with a statement that describes the behavior, describes why we're here, describes why the conversation is important, why the person is important, and then think about the impact or the effect. So because behavior, effect, E is the effect. When somebody's late and parents are worried, but even at work, right? When someone doesn't fulfill their end of the bargain, Like, let's say their work is late on a project. What does that do to the entire team? Probably puts others behind, makes us work longer, work harder, maybe not work as effectively as we can. So the impact of that behavior comes next. And then the change. What's a new future look like together? It will not benefit anyone to try to force agreement on what's happened in the past. That's not the idea here. The idea is to think about what can a new future possibly look like. And remember, this is a template, it's an outline to put some things on. Doesn't mean I go through BECAUSE one all at once. It's how I structure the conversation. So I have an opening statement, we talk about impact, and then express about next time. This is what I'm hoping we can do next time. And then it's our turn to listen. We begin to understand, seek to understand where that person's coming from. Be curious. Come from an attitude of, I wonder why this is happening, and be willing to listen. So listen, and actively listening is more than just listening to the words and hearing the words. It's about intention and meaning, and it's a dialogue. We're asking questions. Can you tell me more about that? That's really interesting. And question, listen. The next is understand. Listening for understanding is huge. In Crucial Conversations, maybe that's a book you're familiar with by Douglas Stone and his colleagues, one of the statements they make is people don't change unless they feel understood. And if you are familiar with Stephen Covey and his 7 Habits book, if you've not read it, highly recommend it. He does a beautiful job in Habit 5 of creating understanding simply by way of how the dialogue is structured between a father and son. So I always point to that as a really good example of what can happen when we actively listen and we leave off judgment and we think about how can we make this better. Now we want to find a solution. Let's work together. Again, if we think about future focus, how can this be different? What needs to be better? What am I willing to change? What am I willing to do? And what would I need from you? Let's see if we can work together to find out a solution so it doesn't happen again. And then the final letter is the E, which is expressing faith or having confidence. We've got this under control. We can move forward. It's going to be successful. And then find out if it fails, what we should do. I think that's an important piece, and it's not in this necessarily a letter in because, but think about, we've got these agreements in place. What might go wrong, and what should we do about that? Again, I think it's super important to reach agreement being future focused and thinking about my responsibility, your responsibility, and having a discussion about what that might look like. So remember, it's an outline, not a script. It can be helpful, I think, to put words on your lips first. Think about saying them, how do they sound, try them out before you go live. But it is simply a framework, or as I indicated, a template. Visualize success, visualize it going well. A lot of times we awfulize things in our head. We think, oh my gosh, that's never going to work, or oh, it's going to be really bad. Well, think about, hey, you know what? Both of us are going to come and get what we need, and both of us are going to work through this constructively, and we're going to create this new future that will be really helpful. Last but not least, practice. Even if it's just in front of a mirror, or turn on your video camera on your computer or your phone And talk to yourself on your phone. Look at your face, look at your expressions, hear the words, and practice, practice, practice. Now you're ready to go. So use it, have that difficult conversation. And once you've done it, I'd love to hear from you. Post your results, post your comments in below this video. And then again, I'll ask you one more time. Subscribe to my channel. Share this video if you feel it has significance with someone who might benefit from it.